What is going on, Don't Unfriend Me Nation? Good to have you here today with me. My name is Matthew Spear. I am the host of Don't Unfriend Me. And yes, it's sometime early in the AM hours. I think it's, I don't know what it is. I can't even see I'm getting too old, folks. I'm getting too old. Pete Buttigieg, Mayor Pete. You remember this guy, Mayor Pete. It seems that no matter what he does, he is going to go ahead and stick Pete at the end of every title. Now, of course, that's his name and he can do that. But Mayor Pete, now it's Secretary Pete. Thank God he's not a Piper. Pete's pickled, Piper, pickled, peppered, Pete. Vice President Peter. President Pete. It's so obnoxious. I mean, I'm an obnoxious guy. I get it. But Mayor Pete, what has he truly done? They stuck him in the Department of Transportation because they assumed that nothing would happen. But what did happen? Well, we had salmon issues up in the Pacific Northwest in regards to moving rivers and moving them around freeways because it hurt the salmon's spawn and their run. Wow. Then we had some vinyl chloride go up into the sky and something that looked like Mount St. Helens Part 2 that he didn't visit and take care of. We've had the highest transportation costs in U.S. history, well, at least since Jimmy Carter. Yeah, I mean, this guy, they put him in that area so he could just basically go there to wither away because he was a consolidation prize to go ahead and endorse Joe Biden because he came in third along with Bernie Sanders because the DNC did what they always did and steal it from Pete Buttigieg, who was in the lead in Wisconsin and Michigan with Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden was sucking hind tit. But miraculously, somehow, Kamala Harris saved him the Carolinas, and then Joe Biden went ahead and won. And the Democrats decided to go ahead and petition every single swing state to go ahead and send out mail-in ballots to non-registered voters. Oh, yeah, but that was okay to do. But anyway, that's a whole nother story and a whole nother conversation. But Mayor Pete, the piercing blue eyes of Mayor Pete, is going to tell us all the wonderful things that he has done. Now, he's going to talk about Juneteenth. Now, I don't have a problem with Juneteenth. I think the emancipation of African Americans, of anyone who is oppressed, is an amazing thing. This is why we like 1776 and 1783, because our own emancipation took place from a tyrannical British rule. So I'm fine. If you don't want to celebrate July 4th, I don't care. You don't have to. I don't celebrate a lot of holidays. Christmas, Memorial, Veterans Day, maybe Halloween. And then if I remember my wife's anniversary and my kids' birthdays, I'm the father of the year for sure. But Mayor Pete wants to tell you, a white guy, a gay white guy, wants to tell you all about Juneteenth. He wants to educate black people on this holiday who know nothing about this holiday. And let's be honest, every African-American friend that I know, nobody celebrates Juneteenth. Not one. But there is this push. There is this movement that all of a sudden Joe Biden 2 years ago signed Juneteenth into a national holiday that hardly anyone knew about. Now, let's be honest. This is, out of all the days that you could have chosen, there's about 15 of them to celebrate the emancipation. January 1st probably should be the focus. Now, go look up history, go look up Lincoln, look up the Emancipation Proclamation and the speech. You can look at Gettysburg, the surrender at Appomattox. There's a lot of things you could look at and to say, this is the day that we should celebrate. But ultimately, Juneteenth was identified as a general and the Union troops went into Galveston, where the word supposedly hadn't reached that slavery was over. This is a cute story, but not true. They all knew that it was over. They had heard that it was over, and there were no Union troops to essentially enforce that law, and that was the problem. So Union troops showed up and did enforce that law, and Juneteenth has become a holiday. Now, Pete Buttigieg is going to tell you that Juneteenth is something completely different. Not only that little thing that I just mentioned, which is important, let's be honest, and you should celebrate that time if that's what you want to celebrate, but now he's making it sound like February and Black History Month, which really a lot of the things that he mentions. So he is trying to connect Joe Biden with emancipation. He's trying to take it away that Republicans didn't stop slavery in the United States, that the South weren't Democrats, and all these things, this BS narrative about the party switch that never took place, a whole nother show completely. And he is going to give you what is known as a Juneteenth sandwich. It's where you start off with one slice of bread of Juneteenth and you have another slice of bread of Juneteenth and you put a whole bunch of stuff in the middle and squish it together and say, hey, this is about Juneteenth. But really what it is to garner the black vote from a white guy who really has no idea what the hell he's talking about. He was told by Biden that he has to go up there and do this because Joe Biden is not relatable. Here it is.
Hi, everyone. Secretary Pete here, wishing you the best this Juneteenth holiday.
Look at this. He looks like he was 3D printed in a factory. The eyes match the tie. The jacket matches the hair. The button, the DOT button, the beautiful cuffs of his shirt coming out. I mean, this guy is almost perfect. One thing, the map behind him, this is something that most yuppies do, is they get a map like they used to on RVs and put stickers of every state that they went to. That was kind of cool. This, he puts a pin in every city he's been to. I've counted. There's 47 pins. That's not a lot for somebody who's in charge of transportation, hasn't gotten around. Maybe he should get out a little more. Maybe going to Ohio a little bit earlier than 3 weeks after there is a giant plume of smoke. Joe Biden still hasn't been there. However, Biden did show up to the bridge collapse in Pennsylvania last week, which is interesting, but didn't show up to a giant plume of noxious carcinogens and vinyl chloride and everything else that polluted the rivers and the causeways of the U.S. Midwest. It's interesting, northern Midwest. But anyway, I didn't see a pin in Ohio there, but I'm sure he'll get to it. It's Pete Buttigieg.
157 years ago today, Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, declaring that all enslaved people were free.
By the way, Galveston, beautiful summer spot if you haven't been. It's not really a beach. Everyone goes, oh, go to the beach. The waves are literally up to your ankle bone. But it is a nice little place. A little bit too sandy and seashelly for me. I like a cleaner beach, something more white sand or something like Ventura that's actually fairly clean. I don't like all the seaweed and the seashells, but folks, we're digressing. So here we go.
And 2 years ago, President Biden signed a bill into law making that day, Juneteenth, a federal holiday.
Wow. Thanks, Joe Biden. We appreciate it. Giving us something that we had no idea about.
Juneteenth calls on us to grapple with haunting truths about our country's history, and also invites us to celebrate all of the ways that Black voices and Black leadership have shaped the culture, society, and way of life of the United States of America, before and since emancipation.
Yeah, that's not what it's for. But that's what it's being portrayed as now, because now we have to justify why we make it a federal holiday. Once again, I don't have any problem with Juneteenth except for the name, Juneteenth. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense. It's like 12 o'clock. I don't quite understand it, but that's fine. That's the only knock I have on it, except for white guys pretending that, once again, they care about emancipation. Listen, all you got to do is look at Japanese internment camps. You look at slavery, Jim Crow laws, who was against the Underground Railroad, who was against civil rights, who actually started the leasing and the border restrictions on gerrymandering. Please stop pretending that the Democrat Party gives a crap about the African-American people. Look at the modern day cities. 37 out of the top 50 most violent cities are all democratically ran. You can sit here and say that all of the litany of things that are happening right after this comment that he made are true, but there is no data to back it up. It is simply pandering and making the Juneteenth sandwich. Here it is.
And of course, it reminds us of the continuing struggle to advance racial justice in our time.
It doesn't remind me of that at all. And I don't think it reminds African Americans, because I don't hear African Americans saying we need rights. I don't think that's the conversation. In fact, I don't think there's one right that I have that a Black man or a minority or a woman or a gay person or anyone else doesn't have. Please tell me what we're fighting for with racial justice. Because if anything, there's too much justice in the African-American community. There's disparity in terms of sentencing and mandatory limits on sentencing that white people don't necessarily have. We need to look at that. We can look at criminal justice reform. Maybe there is too much justice, maybe too much strong-arm justice. But to say that there are certain laws or regulations that are on the books that are still there today that were there in the yesteryear, and we need to bring attention to that, is absolutely ridiculous.
Transportation has been a battleground for civil rights and environmental justice across this country, especially for the descendants of the enslaved people we recognize today.
He's going to go ahead and compare the Underground Railroad with what? The C-470 and a tollway? This is one of the biggest stretches in the world. You're also going to hear him talk about how travel in the United States today is racist because more African Americans get in car wrecks that are lethal than white people. Maybe you could look that it could possibly I want you to make the correlation not between the color of the skin and the drivers. I want you to look at the safety ratings on a vehicle that's worth $10,000 versus one that's worth $40,000. Maybe you can talk about the economic disparity, which leads us back to the inner cities where most of the people who are getting in these accidents are from because they drive vehicles that are inadequate for today's roads. But you don't say anything about that. You want to ban every car and give them all EV cars that are worth $40,000 that they can't afford anyway. It's hilarious. You actually want to take away vehicles from these communities because you're creating a disparity in economy based upon the cost of a car that has value versus one that has some sort of intrinsic value about saving energy, but destroys the pocketbook of people who can't afford them. But of course, that's not racist. That's just good policy.
That's why at USDOT, we are reinforcing our civil rights programs. And
how do you reinforce civil rights? You either have civil rights programs or you don't. Why do you need civil rights programs? Why do you need special programs to ensure that you have some sort of watchman over your company or over your bureaucratic agency? This should be inherent. And if it's not, who's leading the practices that are anti-civil rights? Why do you need a special program for that? It should be baked into the pie.
Advancing the Biden-Harris administration's vision for racial equity. Under the Justice 40 initiative, we are working to ensure new infrastructure.
This is where he loses everybody. This is where he starts going and naming programs that people have no idea about because the education of programs that are supposed to be for the disadvantaged, that are supposed to help people get out of the gutters, help people get out of the slums, they have no idea about them because they don't educate the general public on what programs are there for them. So those dollars get reallocated into more spending on things that we don't need, or illegal immigrants, or insurance for people who aren't Americans. This is what happens with Democratic policy. There's so much wasteful spending, and then the people who actually pay for it get left with the bag.
Infrastructure investments reach communities that have too often been left out of the federal investments of the past. We're building better roads, bridges, airports, buses.
Even though we had one collapse, but ignore that. Everything's fine. A little truck fire went ahead and melted a bridge. It should be okay.
Not to mention getting rid of lead pipes, expanding
lead pipes on roads? Just randomly lead pipes? Folks, don't touch that. Little Johnny, get your hand away from that. Why, Mommy? It's just a stick. No, that's lead pipes. Get away, honey. Lead pipes. What is this, 1960? Was there some sort of uranium spill I'm not aware of? Is someone pouring hot lead on America's highways, shooting signs? What lead are we talking about? And affordable internet? You mean Comcast and Charter and AT&T, the companies that have had impoverished programs and giving up almost 2% of their overall net revenue into these communities and giving them free internet? They've all had these programs. Hundreds of thousands of kids are being taken care of for free with high-speed internet. You're not creating anything. You haven't laid more fiber optic cable. AT&T and Comcast do that every single day. They lay tens of thousands of miles of cable every single year, and they're going to be doing that until 2046. What has the U.S. government done? Nothing.
High-speed internet and taking so many more steps that will help communities to grow and thrive. Earlier this year, we announced millions in funding to reconnect communities that have been divided by the choices of the past.
What does that mean? Okay, so the only thing, folks, I hate to just hit him on everything, but I don't know what else to do. Every Pete Buttigieg video I've ever done, I have never been like, you know what, he's right. That's a good point. I've done that with Biden. I've done it with Harris. I've done it with everybody, Bill Maher. I've never done it with Buttigieg because everything he says sounds really good, but he is the Dick Clark of politics. He never ages, a little slightly gray, but he can get some Just for Men and touch that up. But he never tells the truth. He just BS's. What choices of the past, besides the diversity that happens with the railroad syndrome? You know, the southern part of the tracks is where all the poor people live, and the northern part is where the rich people live. You can also say that about the east and the west. But here's the problem. Until you get these major corporations to come in and build in these impoverished neighborhoods and create jobs in these areas, somewhere other than McDonald's, Jack in the Box, Taco Bell, and Burger King for these poor kids to work at, they're going to make choices for the easy money, which is to stay home, have as many kids as possible, deal drugs, or get involved in gangs and crime. And until that changes, this is the moniker that is around the Democratic Party's neck that they're never going to be able to move away from. The only choices that we have is we have to stop segregating neighborhoods by economic diversity. This is what happened in Colorado in 5 Points. It was a slum, prostitution, drugs, crack, heroin, all of that. They were crack houses everywhere. The city went in, they went ahead and cleaned it up. They moved the areas and gave them affordable housing on the outskirts of that area. They brought in new corporations and new businesses, and now it's one of the most thriving communities in the United States. This is what we need. And I can't believe I'm advocating for any policies in Colorado. I once loved Colorado State, the place I love where people could carry guns and they were just like ate steak all day long. Now is a pot-smoking hippieville, but it is what it is. Boulder has taken over Colorado.
We're uniting neighborhoods and helping more Americans better access the jobs, schools, healthcare, groceries, and community institutions they count on.
Right, but then he's not going to tell you. He's not going to give you any examples. He's just going to tell you he's done this. Haven't you felt this, folks? Haven't you felt it when your groceries cost 30% more? Yeah. How about your taxes? You feel that right in the pocketbook? Yeah, that's what we're doing for you. Infrastructure, folks. We're going to go ahead and create more jobs. What jobs?
Meanwhile, we're modernizing our disadvantaged business enterprise programs and
What?
supporting our Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization to ensure that Black-owned businesses get a fair chance to compete for infrastructure work, and creating good-paying transportation jobs that empower families to buy homes, educate their kids, and build generational wealth for the future.
You're telling me that your good-paying transportation job is going to build generational wealth and afford a house. Have you seen interest rates? Have you seen houses and the prices of houses today? The average family can't afford that. I don't care if they're white, black, brown, or indifferent. This guy is sitting up here and absolutely lying to you. Why do people continue to believe Democrats? Why do people continue to believe this guy? In no way, shape, or form is he giving you one example. Yes, I have sat up here and went tit for tat with him. I would love if he would have made a 3-minute video talking about Juneteenth and then shut up. Or maybe give some examples of prominent black leaders in America that kids can look up to. Instead, you're getting a campaign speech. They're politicizing your blackness. They're politicizing slavery and what happened. They don't care about you. They only care about your vote. That's why on this national holiday that's supposed to be so full of pride and about blackness is only about your vote. And I'm tired of Democrats traipsing on black people and what they went through to garner a political strategy. Sorry for the language.
We're deploying new resources to address the massive racial disparities that we have seen in the data when it comes to roadway deaths, and working to save lives on roads and highways in every community nationwide.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're black and it's midnight, be careful going on the roads. They are deadly entrapments for the African American community. We've already talked about this disparity. We already know why. How about this? Why don't you do a study on black drivers versus all other drivers and take a look at eyesight? Take a look and see if they have insurance to drive at night and actually have the proper eyewear in order to drive. Have we looked at that? Because insurance rates are so damn high today. There are so many other things we can look at to decide why are there higher black deaths than white deaths. But of course, it's always racism. It's those racist car makers that hunt black people in their subservient poor people cars. Why don't we look at the actual data versus go ahead and talking about racism when it comes to the roadways? It's complete crap.
We're deepening our partnerships with historically black colleges and universities.
Isn't that racist in itself? Can you talk about the partnerships with the historically white colleges? Oh, wait a second. Never mind. There aren't any, but I digress.
Funding research into cutting-edge transportation technology and recruiting skilled HBCU students and graduates into our workforce.
HBCU, is that a new additive to THC and cannabis oil? No? Oh.
And we have activated a strategic plan focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility.
Oh, the DEIE, diversity and equity and inclusion. Nothing like diversity, equity, inclusion when it's forced.
To combat discrimination and inequity in our own workplace. These are just some examples of the work that we are doing.
These are just some examples that are not responsible for the Department of Transportation in any way, shape, or form. This is not under their purview. This is not their AOR. They don't deal with water. They don't go ahead and deal with infrastructure when it comes to high-speed cable. They don't deal with equity and diversity. They don't deal with civil rights. If it takes you to get in a vehicle and the moment you leave your driveway, whatever you're on and wherever you end up, right before that, they own. That's it. Bridges, tunnels, causeways. That's what they own. But this guy is running for office through the DOT.
US DOT to address infrastructure barriers and improve transportation equity in communities nationwide.
Transportation. Now it's transportation equity. Transportation is not equal. Until we bridge the gaps between white people transportation and black people transportation, we will never, ever be able to rest. No transportation, no peace. No transportation, no peace.
This Juneteenth, I invite you to take a moment
Here's
to
the end of the
remember
sandwich.
our history and remember our place in recommitting to create a more just future for our country.
No, it's not about remembering your place in history. It's remembering your place now. You are subservient to the Democratic Party. Republicans are full of racists who don't want to help you. Actually, they don't want to help you. They want to teach you how to get and move up. Not a hand out, but a hand up. There is a difference. There's nothing like standing on your own 2 feet. There's nothing like creating your own businesses. Ask any African American who has a small business what they did to get it, and it will never be the government. It'll always be, I did it. I made it happen. Even though Obama says you didn't do that, this person did it, and this person did it. That is the difference between a Republican and conservative mindset and a liberal one. Liberals are always looking for someone to do the work for them, and conservatives are saying you have to do the work for yourself. You may not like that. That may not be the answer that you want, but it is the truth. And I promise you this. None of these supposed policies that Pete Buttigieg failed to mention will help any African American. Juneteenth, most assuredly, is a day that people should celebrate if they want to. But let's stop making it about something that it isn't. It isn't a political campaign hit piece. It isn't a chance for you to go ahead and placate to black people and tell them about their blackness when they are well aware of it, and they certainly don't need to hear it from Petey the Pete Meister, the incredibly blue-eyed, well-palated, and color-coordinated mayor, secretary, and gay guy who knows more about black people than black people. Folks, thanks for watching the Don't Unfriend Me Show. That is my opinionated, long-winded take on Pete Buttigieg. You can see us tonight at 8 o'clock with Olivia, Matthew, and Amy, and Leroy. We will all be together on the live show at 8 o'clock. Come by and see us and say hello. We'll have a good time. Thanks for watching tonight. Stop by the Dumb Show. Get yourself some cool shirts, some hats. And please do me one last favor. Listen to the following outage. 22 veterans commit suicide a day. It's way too many. They need your help. Please listen and provide this number. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on the Don't Unfriend Me Show. God bless.
I'm David Boreanaz with the Cast of SEAL team, and we have an important message for returning vets.
We want you to know if you're struggling to cope, there's help and it's just a phone call away.
The Veterans Crisis Line is staffed with experienced professionals who know your struggles.
There's no greater sacrifice in service to our country. We're able to enjoy our freedoms because of it.
Your service is important. You are important.
For vets and their families, the Veterans Crisis Line is here to help 24 hours a day. Please call